For our first story, we have my 38 female husband's 37 male hot wife fantasy for me has ended in regret, shame, and now worry that my marriage is in trouble. How do we start to navigate this? TLDR. My husband's hot wife fantasies for me slowly turned into our reality. I began to have regrets and changed my mind about participating in this. I told my husband I don't want to do this anymore and feel bad, but don't blame him at all. My husband now accuses me of lying to him for 2 years, and he doesn't know who I am, and our sex life is doomed because I want out of this. I feel lost and lonely and like my marriage is ruined. A few years ago, my husband began wanting to explore more fantasizing and role play in the bedroom. We have 2 young kids and have been together since college, so things probably weren't amazing, but I was never unhappy with our sex life. We had an amazing time reigniting our sex life and felt like we were regaining some of the fun and passion we'd let slip over time. This led to him opening up more about specific fantasies like sharing me, which first started with him wanting to share sexy pics of me on Reddit. I didn't like the idea but was willing to indulge if everything was anonymous and no face. He loved doing this and seeing the comments from other men, I guess, reinforcing that he was a lucky man. And the positive feedback and compliments for sure gave me a nice confidence boost. Then he confessed his fantasies progressed to opening up our marriage in real life and having me become a hot wife. I was totally caught off guard and was not interested at all. I loved him and our marriage. I never wanted to be with another man, and I was very happy with us. He explained it wasn't about that, and he just wanted me to see how sexy I was and to see me be pleased in every way possible. I thought he was crazy, but we continued to talk about it. We had a lot of conversations about what he liked about this fantasy and hypotheticals about the repercussions of actually doing something like that. It seemed like a recipe for disaster too. However, I was willing to indulge in the fantasy of the hot wife topic with roleplay and toys and things like that. But his craving for this to actually happen in real life only got worse. And I guess I didn't realize it, but I slowly began convincing myself that I maybe could want this too if it meant that I was going to make him happy and give us this incredible sex life. It felt like if I didn't at least explore this, I wasn't pleasing the man that I so desperately want to make happy. He started posting more to Reddit, some I knew about, some I didn't, and talking to different men. I started chatting with some of them to see if it was something that sparked my interest. Again, I liked the compliments and then attention, but more than anything, I loved how turned on my husband got. That was what kept me moving forward even when I wasn't feeling good about what I was doing. My husband had never been more attentive and complimentary and turned on by me, and that was hot. We started exploring websites and apps geared toward the lifestyle. I always expressed that I would prefer exploring his together. I had only been with a few men before I met him, and I certainly didn't intend to start my sleeping around era after I was married with kids. But again, I let myself be convinced this was good for me and us and our sex life and would spice up our marriage. In the end, I ended up agreeing to explore things. I had several different experiences with several different men. Nothing was terrible, and I got lucky that all of the men were respectful and I was safe. But every single time, I ended up in the bathroom crying because I felt ashamed of what I had done. On top of that, my husband wanted me to take pictures and film things throughout the experience, and every single time he would say I didn't do a good enough job or didn't get to right pictures or angles or a myriad of other things. By the time I got home and he had time to look over pictures and videos, he usually ended up changing his mind, and then I was praised and rewarded with love and affection. And then we would have incredible sex that was wild and uninhibited and amazing. But then that FOD would start to wear off after time, and he would push me to explore again. I hated that all the pressure and responsibility was on me. I had to chat with the men and vet them and flirt and keep them interested and send them sexy pics. Sometimes it was fun, but it also became exhausting. I was trying to make these other men happy who didn't matter to me at all, on top of maintaining all the other normal relationships in my life and my marriage. At one point I met a guy who was involved in the lifestyle with his wife, and I was excited that finally maybe my husband and I could explore things with another couple, or of at least befriending another couple who had some experience navigating this delicate dynamic. We went out on a double date with them and it was fun, and I thought we all hit it off, but my husband ending up having a superficial hang-up about the wife. Okay, no big deal, I would never push him to do something he didn't want to do or wasn't comfortable with. We went to a lifestyle club twice while on vacations, and that was the most he ever participated. But he wouldn't approach anyone or put himself out there. I had to be the one to chat with other people, and it never led anywhere. I think that's when I really started to feel resentful that although this was his kink, I was the only one actually taking part in it and also the only one incurring any risk and repercussions. I could be meeting up with a psycho? I could be put in a dangerous situation where I am not in control and cannot defend myself. Even though we were safe, I could catch an STD. My husband could end up changing his mind and resenting me, and I have no defense because he never did anything. I was the only one who had actually done something wrong. Then, this winter right around the holidays, there was a big blow-up within our extended family where someone was unfaithful and got caught. The way people, including myself, began to view this woman made me reflect a lot about how I was beginning to view myself and how I would literally want to die if anyone found out about what I had been doing. My husband assured me this was so different because he was the one who wanted this hot wife thing and we were in it together, but it began making me feel so much regret. I felt like a bad person and so ashamed that I had let things go this far when in the long run my life, my marriage, my family, and my mental health and happiness are far more important than a fantasy. I ended up spilling my guts to my husband about how my feelings have changed about us participating in this. I told him this has been eating at me and my conscience. I told him I don't blame him at all or feel like he forced me into something. But I also said that I feel like I tried to convince myself I wanted to explore this because he never relented about pushing the fantasy, and then it kept going further and further. Anyway, now he is saying that I have been lying to him too for the past 2 years and he doesn't know who I am. His biggest concern is that our sex life will never be good again because he doesn't know if he can trust what I say I like and want in the bedroom. I have assured him, I like exploring almost anything with him, but I am only interested in exploring with him from here on out. But he keeps saying now we are going to have normal sex and he will never get what he wants. I told him this doesn't have to ruin our sex life, but if that is his perspective and expectation going into trying to fix this, it's going to be hard to move forward. Then he told me it is my job to bend over backwards and show me that nothing will change and that I did nothing wrong. I'm not gonna act like I did something wrong and coddle you. You got us here. I don't know how to get out. You figure it out. So basically that's the state of my marriage right now and I feel hopeless. That's the end of our first post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, I would never push him to do something he didn't want to do or wasn't comfortable with. God, the sad irony here. Our second commenter says, I mean it sounds like he's choosing his fetish over your health and well-being and conveying that to you. He needs to understand that the marriage will never be reopened and y'all need a couples sex therapist. Our third commenter says, Jesus, if even half of this is true, your husband is an insensitive, manipulative ass. Your thinking is mostly right, except you should blame him 100% for ending up here. He is simply treating you as an object, not a person, partner. For our second story, we have my 29 male mother-in-law told me that for a birthday present she'd like me to be a better husband to my wife, 26 female. Is this something I need to deal with? My mother-in-law was over at our place this weekend. Her and I woke up earlier on Sunday, while my wife was still asleep. As we were having tea, the topic of her upcoming birthday came up. I asked what she'd like. She paused for a second and while smiling said, for you to be a better husband. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. She was smiling, so I thought it was a joke. We have a warm relationship. And I played along and said, why, you've been receiving a lot of complaints about me. Jokingly. She replied, I have my ways. I'm your mother-in-law after all. While still smiling. I was kind of freaking out internally, came to the conclusion it was just her teasing and let the matter drop. But I've been rethinking that conversation over the last 2 days. Admittedly, I may have been giving less time to my wife, partner of 3 years, married for 2, and my 1-year-old daughter recently, because along with my day job I've also been establishing my growing business. Some days are really long, but my wife has been supporting me the entire way. I haven't brought this up with my wife because maybe this was a joke and I don't want to create a whole thing out of a joke and ruin my relationship with my mother-in-law. But I've had a knot in my stomach since. Has my marriage been on the rocks without me knowing, or is this something a mother-in-law would joke about? That's the end of our second post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, Okay, look, stop spiraling and speak to your wife immediately. I'm all at 29, my husband is 29. If my mother said this to him, I would want to know as soon as possible. If there are issues you're not aware of, time to air them out. If your mother-in-law is causing drama or made a shitty joke, those are different conversations you'll get to have once it's sorted. Communicate with your wife. Seriously. Our second commenter says, talk to your wife. Sooner rather than later. Our third commenter says, I don't think this means your marriage is on the rocks, Defcon 5 level doomed. But you mentioned you've been putting in long hours at 2 jobs and your wife has been supporting you the entire way. But who has been supporting her? You have a young child at home who is at an age that requires constant attention and stimulation. This post is a tiny snapshot of your life. I don't know the big picture. I don't know if your wife also works or stays home or how you divide labor. But it's clear your wife has been a partner to you while you've been working so much, in addition to caring for your child, but you are still a husband and you are still a father. This is a good opportunity for you to really evaluate the division of the home labor and childcare. Does your wife ever get time to herself? Not to do more chores, or basic things like take a shower, but read a book. Eat a meal uninterrupted? Go to yoga? Meet with friends? Sleep all the way through the night? You said you frequently talk about how much you love each other and the family you've created, but have you specifically thanked your wife for taking on what sounds like the majority of the childcare and home care while you work? I don't think your mother-in-law was wrong to call you out, and I think she did it in a fairly gentle way. But you can use this as a chance to see how well you're providing for your family, not just financially, but physically and emotionally. For our last story, we have Mike, 28 female, fiancé, 31 male, wants to pull the goalie before our wedding and won't listen. I've been with my fiancé for 6 years and up until now I was convinced he was the right person for me. He's a good listener, in general quite kind, and I think he'll make a great dad someday. I just don't want that day to be now. He's started putting pressure on me to stop taking my birth control so we can have a kid as soon as possible, but I'm not ready to do that. We just moved for his job and we still don't feel settled. I've talked with him about how I'm not ready and he's acting as if I'm having cold feet to our relationship, which I'm not. He says every reason I've given sounds like an excuse and it's really not. Now I'm having doubts from his behavior as it's so odd that now that we're engaged he's obsessed about having a kid. I want kids with him, I really do. I could see being ready within 12 to 18 months but just not this exact second. We've only had one issue this big and we ended up taking a break for a week and I'm worried this is going to lead to something as extreme as that. How can I communicate that me not wanting kids this exact second is not be wanting kids ever and it's not cold feet? If you're a guy, can you help explain what is going through his head so I can understand his feelings? TLDR, my fiancé wants me to pull the goalie before our wedding and I don't want to, but now he thinks I have cold feet. That's the end of our last post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, you do not have to figure out how else to communicate this to him. You've communicated. He is dismissing your point of view and trying to persuade you to change your mind. Wouldn't you be happier if you were marrying someone who respected your opinion and worked together as a team? Our second commenter says, if you're already marrying him, why is he trying to saddle you with an anchor baby? You've been together a long time, so why is he in a rush all of a sudden before your wedding? He's starting to get manipulative in his dealings with you, by telling you, you're questioning the timing of getting pregnant means that you're questioning our relationship, is an obvious ploy to manipulate your emotions. He's turned the conversation away from, why do you, man, want children right this minute, suddenly? 2. What do you mean you don't want kids with me? He's getting you to a point where you can't compromise on him having his way. Honestly, this is the best time for this issue to come up. At least you're not legally bound to him yet. I get real with him and indicate to him that his obsession with this issue is causing you concern. That you've discussed these items, you've had recent changes in your lives, and you're literally getting ready to commit to each other for life. What is his rush? The way he is handling this is demonstrating some red flags, and the biggest one is that he is not accepting or respecting your desires for your relationship, and for your body. His timing and the amount of pressure he's applying seems strategic. Whatever you do, don't go off BC, and make sure he doesn't have access to your protection. Who knows what he might do? Our third commenter says, don't marry someone who refuses to accept I'm not ready, is a full explanation in and of itself. Definitely don't sleep with him without a birth control method he can't tamper with, although I don't know why you'd sleep with someone you need to take those kind of precautionary measures with at all. If he wants someone who wants kids right this second, he can call it off and go find someone who matches that description. He doesn't get to twist this into you not being committed enough to him, and it should really alarm you that he's pulling this just on the verge of you not being able to walk away easily if it turns out he has other changes to what you thought the long-term life plan was that he hasn't bothered to communicate to you. That's all for today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.